Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our beautiful community. So, tell me a little bit, how are you? What are you doing? What are you up to these days? Tell me a little bit about your favorite weather. Do you like the rainy weather? Outside, the weather is going so crazy, right? It's raining cats and dogs. This is a, let's say, expression in English. We use it to tell about or to say that it's raining a lot. It's raining cats and dogs outside. So it's raining cats and dogs means that it's raining heavily or a lot. So, do you like the rainy weather? Is this your favorite weather? For me, I like the rainy weather. Rain is so nice. It makes you feel happy, relaxed, right? So, tell me a little bit about your favorite weather. So now let's quickly start with today's class. In this video, we're going to continue talking about the simple past tense. If you remember, first, in the previous video, we started talking about the simple past tense and we talked about the regular verbs in the simple past tense. In this video, we're going to talk about the irregular verbs. Let's see what are these verbs and how can we form different sentences using the irregular verbs. So first of all, if you remember, as I have told you first, in English we have three tenses, as you can see. The first tense, which is the simple present tense, if we are talking about actions that are happening right now, right at the moment, right now. If we go back in time, we are going to talk about the simple past tense. If we go further, we're going to have the future, things that will happen, for example, tomorrow. We started talking about the simple past tense, and as I have told you, when do we use the simple past tense? We use it to talk about finished actions in the past. If we are talking about actions that started and finished in the past. Some of the keywords, some of the words that tell you that this sentence is in the past tense, like yesterday, last year, last week, last Monday, 5 years ago. These are the keywords which are related to the simple past tense. So we use the simple past tense first to talk about finished actions in the past, to talk about actions that started and finished in the past. Some of the keywords: yesterday, last night, a month ago, last week, yesterday afternoon, and so on. Now, if you remember, as I have told you, we have two kinds of verbs in English, right? According to the simple past tense. We have first, what do we call the regular verbs? These verbs that accept the ed to change the verb into the past tense. Like, for example, watch. Yesterday I watched TV with my family. And in the previous video, we started talking about the rules of how can we change the verb into the past tense if the verb was regular. That means that this verb accepts the ed. Some of the verbs we add ed to the verb, some of the verbs we add only d if the verb ends with e. Some of the verbs we need to cross out the y if before the y we have a consonant, so we're going to add ied. And some of the verbs we need to double the last consonant if the verb ends with the CVC pattern. In this video, we're going to talk about the irregular verbs. What are these verbs? These verbs, they don't accept the ed to talk about the simple past tense. If I want to change the verb into the past tense, I need to change the whole form of the verb. So you need to memorize these verbs in order to use them correctly. So the most important thing is you need to memorize these verbs. So for example, I eat my breakfast, for example, every day, or I eat apples for breakfast every day. Yesterday, we don't say eated, no. This is irregular verb, so we're going to change the whole verb. It's going to be ate. Yesterday, I ate oranges for breakfast, for example. So how could you know these verbs? You need to memorize them. This is the most important rule according to the irregular verbs. You need to memorize these verbs because they don't accept the ed. To change them into the past, we are going to change the whole form of the verb. So, for example, one, this is the past tense of the verb when in the present. So for example, Danny won many awards for her work last year. So this is in the past. When in the present, for example, I won the first medal, or the golden medal, for example. Yesterday I won. We can't say I went. No, this is irregular verb. So when in the past tense, won. Teach, taught. The teacher taught us a new lesson, for example, yesterday. So teach, we can't say teach in the past, no. Teach in the past, it's going to be taught. So some of the verbs which are irregular. The first one, become, became in the past. She became the first or the most important singer in the world last year, for example. Begin, began. Yesterday I began, for example, with my working with my project, for example. Choose, chose. Give, gave. I gave my sister a new doll yesterday. Go, went. I went to my grandparents to my grandparents' house yesterday. Have had, we had an exam yesterday. So pay attention that we don't say, for example, have or goed or give. No, these are irregular verbs, so that means that the whole form of the verb changes if I want to talk about the simple past tense. Rise, rose, sing, sang, take, took. So let's take a look at this example for these examples. I bought a red car last year, for example. So we don't say I buyed. No, I bought. Bought is the past tense of the verb buy. Okay, you wrote a book last year. Wrote is the past tense of the verb write. He came at home. Came is the past tense of the verb come. Spoke, speak, spoke. Ran, run, ran. So these verbs, you should memorize these verbs in order to use them in the past tense, for example. So speak, spoke, run, ran, sing, sang, come, came, write, wrote, buy, bought, write, wrote, become, became, begin, began. So different verbs, the only way to know how to use them is you need to memorize these verbs in order to use them correctly in different sentences. For example, go, went, have had, went, won, teach, taught. Okay, so try to use these verbs in different sentences in order to master them. Thank you so much, and please stay tuned. We're going to continue with the negative form of the simple past tense with the irregular verbs. Thank you so much, and see you soon.